International Union President of the American Federation of Government Employees Union. A little boy from Kannapolis, North Carolina, the most anti-space on earth. Right? Anti-union space on earth, right? Was elected president of his international union. Brothers and sisters, please welcome our executive board member. Wait a minute, I ain't gonna get that in. He's still a member of our state AFL-CIO executive board. Please welcome our executive board member home, the international president of the American Federation of Government Employees, the Honorable David Cox.
Hard to say, Jeremy, sit down. You know, after that introduction, it's like, now what am I going to say? It's as though he tried to read all the comments that I had written down here tonight. And over the last 6 years, I remember when I came back to you 6 years ago after being elected as Secretary-Treasurer, you know, the staff takes very good care of me. They get all these comments, and they're beautifully written and spaced and those type things because they want me to do very well, but I'm at home and I really don't have to follow the script. Is that right? I don't have to do that. But, you know, to be back in North Carolina, that all the electoral votes went for Barack Obama in 2008. Barack Obama because of the North Carolina AFL-CIO and the labor movement in this state. But to be back, and I'm looking around this room tonight, and I was thinking earlier, my first North Carolina AFL-CIO convention was in 1989. We were down at Atlantic Beach on the coast. My national president, John Sturdivant, was the speaker for that convention. I remember it so well. It was a great convention. My first involvement outside of AFGE. I was elected as the local president of 1738 in 1988. And I'm proud to tell you, Essie and Sharon were both there the night I was elected, actually as vice president, that immediately became the president of the local in 1988. And they've been with me in every election of my life. And Geneva and Tina and Deborah, had they been part of 1738 at that point, they'd have been with me in every election of my life. And, you know, great leadership in that local. But in the North Carolina AFL-CIO, I'm kind of looking over here to this center table. And I'm looking at Tom Coley, David Griffin, Dale Sexton. I mean, you know, true leaders. I remember y'all in that first convention. And I will tell you, as I look at the three of y'all, you have aged a little with me. Some of our hair has grayed. Some of us have even less hair. Some of us look a little older. But I kind of look over here to the far corner to Barbara McCoy, who was in that first convention. And Barbara, you're just as beautiful as you were 23 years ago. And you're still the best looking woman in all of the North Carolina AFL-CIO. And you know, I remember those folks, and I remember James, you know, and his involvement with the AFL-CIO, and many other people. And when we call names, sometimes we forget all the names. And for the last 6 years, I've been able to continue my involvement with the state Fed because Mike Gravenese is always at that airport picking me up, always getting me back, always rearranging his schedule to make it work for me to be around. And one other very special person here as we move on up here to this front table, he thought I had forgotten him. Now, this man was so special when I came in. He said, I have to take my pill at 7 o'clock. Now, PR, I'm not going to tell everybody that pill was blue. You see, I can tell that this group has aged with me, understands about blue pills. But PR Latta, I mean, this man is an icon in the labor movement, not just in North Carolina, but in CWA and nationwide. And you know what? I go back and I hear him talk about all the people that he's been involved in the elections. And in 2004, just told me 36,000 stakes for political signs. The man split in his basement and got all that ready to be out there to help get the right candidates elected. So those are things that people in this organization are. So I want to tell you about growing up in Kannapolis, North Carolina. Now, Barbara, we did get it organized and we did get it a union. And if those people would have listened 20 years earlier, there'd still be a mill there, there'd still be workers there, and there'd be a union, there'd be pension plans, and all those kind of things. And those are things that if we've got to grow this movement. If we don't grow this movement, we are not going to grow the middle class, and we're not going to grow things for working men and women in this country. But growing up in Kannapolis, you know, I could have turned out a whole lot different. I look at my life, and I could have certainly turned out in a different mannerism. And I was thinking about my life. Some of you know, my father died when I was 6 years old in 1957, the year this organization came into being. Now, if my mom was a single woman, my dad worked in Cannon Mills, a company that was always good to its workers. I still remember he died in April. The first day of June, they looked my mom in the face and they said, well, guess what, Miss Cox? You're a woman. You don't have anything to offer this company. You got to move out of this company house because we got men that need this house. And we had to move out of the company house. And furthermore, a single woman that just lost her husband, young children, those type things. We can't comprehend those type things would happen today, but it was done to her because she was a woman. That actually happened in my life. So we moved, and guess what, y'all? I say this very proudly. I ate free lunch in school because we didn't have enough resources. And you know what? I'm a better person on account of it. Government does good things for people in this country. I guess there are those people, as I watched on TV the other week, that would have said, that's welfare, and my mom was sorry and just wouldn't work. Well, she worked. She cleaned houses. She did all type of things. She worked. We just didn't have enough money. But you know what? The government should have been providing free lunch for me and other people. And you know what? By doing that, it provided money for farmers to grow that food. It provided jobs in grocery stores for people to sell that food. It provided all those things that were good. And when I look at this group of people that's been in this organization a very long time, the first political election I ever remember in my life to amount to anything was in 1960. And Terry Sanford was running for governor. Y'all remember that race? A long, long time ago. And you know what? Terry Sanford was instrumental in starting the North Carolina Community College system. Do you remember those days? Remember them a long time ago. Well, you know what? I went to the North Carolina Community College system. At the time I went to the community college system, the taxpayers of this state spent $2,000 a year on each person that was enrolled full-time in the North Carolina Community College system. I graduated, I became a registered nurse, and went to work at the VA. Now, I want you to know that $2,000 for those 2 years in the North Carolina Community College system, that $4,000, if I personally could invest $4,000 and get the repeated return that I put back into the North Carolina economy with my taxes, all those type things, I tell you, y'all wouldn't see me tonight because I'd have so much money I would think I was rich or something like that. Those are the type things that ought to be happening. Those are the type people we should be electing to be the leaders of this state and this country that believe in investing in people. And you know, I look to people that I know was involved in that election in 1960. And people that made it possible that he became the governor and such a great school system was started in this state. And I'm not alone. There's other people I'm talking to right now that went to the community college system in this state. And that, you know, investing in those type things is very, very important. But you know, as life goes along, we learn more and more. And I learned in Kannapolis a long time ago that, you know, I heard about unions, and the more I heard about it, the more I knew I wanted one. You know, there was no question in my life. And I'd worked at the community hospital, which was Cabarrus, now Northeast Medical Center. We didn't have a union. And I can remember they would send us home without pay. They would change our shifts. They'd do a lot of terrible things, and it's like, okay, you just got to do it. You just have to suck it up and live with it because you got to have a job. And I put in for a job at the VA, and I almost didn't take that job. And I was discussing backwards and forwards, and my mother looked me square in the face, and she said, "Boy, you better take that job. That's a union job." She didn't tell me it was a government job. She told me it was a union job. And you know what? We got to get more people and their parents telling people they need a union job. You know, that's the kind of job we need. And I've never, ever regretted taking the advice of my mom. I can tell you, that's the best advice my mother ever gave me in my life. Because, yes, I had pay. Yes, I had health insurance. Yes, I had retirement. And yes, I took care of the men and women that serve this country. That gives me the right to stand up here and to say what I want to about this country and all the various things and the right to be a member of a union. And I will tell you, and I'll go my grave saying this, brothers and sisters, every man and woman that served this country honorably have paid their health insurance premiums in full for the rest of their time. Of me every 2 weeks to ante up my fair share to pay for that health care for those men and women. And I tell people all the time, you know, you will pay taxes, and everybody ought to pay their fair share in this country. And that's the big problem we have today. Everybody in this room is paying more than your fair share, I can promise you. But there are a lot of people that are not paying their fair share. And that's where I'm going to go and talk about this election that we've got coming up. I can tell you about all the unions in Charlotte last week. And I can tell you the conversations for the last year amongst all the unions in D.C. and around about. And some of your own international unions about last week being in Charlotte. I took a position very early. You know, it's in Charlotte. Yes, North Carolina has very low, probably last in the country in union density, but don't be afraid of that. If you want more union members, go to North Carolina and organize union members. you, there's somebody, if they have to work on Christmas Eve, they're willing to talk to you about organizing a union. And James and I found that out at the airport very quickly here about 2 years ago. But you should be in North Carolina organizing more union members. I think about UAW. And I was talking with some folks about Bob King, and maybe 15 years ago we were talking about organizing, and Bob was talking about coming to North Carolina. And I remember, and Essie remembers, the day the phone rang in 1738's union office, and it was Bob King saying, "We're going to be coming up to Cleveland. Can you get up there and give us some help?" And immediately Essie said, "Yeah, I got family members that work there. Other people, we got family members that work there," and was on the ground helping to work and organize those workers in Cleveland. And have y'all ever regretted having a union up in Cleveland? Oh, no, you ain't never regretted having a union. And I look around this thing, and Barbara Bowen, you organize those concessionary workers over at the airport. You know, McDonald's and cinnamon buns or whoever they are, what stuff my wife doesn't eat anymore. You know, and even those salad people, they're over there. But you know, you organize those workers. Those union members have a better life. They're not the highest paid workers. They're service workers. They require a lot of service from unions, but guess what? We went out there and we organized those workers. And Barbara, thank you so much for doing that. Those are the kind of things we got to keep doing over and over. And you know, you can sit around and you can moan and groan and gripe and you can get in pity parties, brothers and sisters. But you know what? Go on and get on out of it and get up off your butt and quit mourning and organize. That's what you got to do. Don't accept another. I believe there are two kinds of workers in this country. Those that have a union and those that want a union. And you get on out there and help them get a union. That's what we need to be doing. Now with this election, some of us are kind of teeter-tottering. It hadn't been perfect for the last 4 years. Lord only knows. The President of the United States is our employer. We've struggled a little bit, haven't we, Essie? We're in a 2-year pay freeze, talking about another pay freeze. Many of you have been in pay freezes also. Many of you have family members that are unemployed right now. We know how that's going. Everything hasn't been perfect. But guess what? Don't sit around and wallow in self-pity and let it get a hell of a lot worse. Because it can. We have to win this election. Now, we got to turn North Carolina around. 2010 kind of whooped us on our butts, I can tell you. I mean, I watched those returns and I was cringing all over, James, because I knew what was coming in North Carolina. But you know what? We've been there before. We have been there before. There was a few young men and women that got really fed up with how things were down in Greensboro a few years ago, maybe 50 years ago, and sat on down at that lunch counter and changed this state, didn't they, Don? That's what it's about. Getting up and doing something, and getting out there and being involved. Now, I look around this room, there's people all over this room that you got somebody that you know. The next door neighbor, the next door neighbor's friend, the young kid that's delivering something to your house, whoever, whatever. The first words out of your mouth, and I did it all week long in Charlotte last week, are you registered to vote? Are you registered to vote? I want to know if you registered to vote. I can tell you, through the years, Jeff and John never brought home a woman to our house, and I didn't ask her right out the gate. You ain't going out with my boys if you ain't registered to vote. Oh, no. Right up front. My daughter-in-law still remembers the day. I won't tell you, I drug her on out of that bedroom and said, you're going to register to vote. She ain't here, so Essie knows. I've told that story before. No, sirree. Be registered to vote. We got to get aggressive with it. We still got time. We've got to register people. North Carolina Carolina can make this election, y'all. North Carolina will make this election. It will make this election. Mr. Dalton will be the governor of this state. Don't sit down. Don't give up. Union people keep fighting. They keep fighting. And that's what we have to do. And that's where we got to go. Now, if I probably turn over to page 12, I can figure out where I'm at. You know, I just saw a name on this paper that I was supposed to talk about. And to show you the perseverance of the North Carolina AFL-CIO, we endured Jesse Helms for 30 years, y'all. For 30 years, we went through the torture of that man. And Tom, for 30 years, we all gave dearly, from pats and laughs and anything we could give to get rid of him. But you know what? We never, ever gave up. And guess what? That seat's now in the hands of a Democrat. You know, it's thanks. It's thanks. And you people don't ever give up. So I'd leave you tonight, and I want you to think about, what are you going to do over about the next 45 days? Are you going to moan and groan and wallow in self-pity? Are you going to register people to vote? Are you going to say it's hard to organize in North Carolina? Or are you going to organize in North Carolina? Are you going to get out there and knock on doors? Are you going to walk? Are you going to talk? Are you going to do all the things that's humanly possible in your power to bring this election home, brothers and sisters? That's what you got to do. And I want to tell you, don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. This guy is 61 years old, born in Kannapolis, North Carolina, single mom, ate free lunch in school, got through the community college, went to work for the government, came up through the ranks, got elected as Secretary-Treasurer of AFGE that represents 650,000 workers nationwide. And you got this little glass on your table tonight. This has been a good year of my life, y'all. In May of this year, and I know some of the CWA people know of this institution very well, I was chosen to be the honoree for the Yitzhak Rabin Center in Tel Aviv, Israel. And Morty Barr, the first honoree of the Rabin Center, came out of CWA several years ago. And if anybody had ever told me that somebody from Kannapolis, North Carolina, would be chosen as an honoree for the Prime Minister of Israel's Presidential Library and Museum in Tel Aviv, and y'all know they ain't nothing about me Jewish in any way, shape, or form. You know, that came out of Kannapolis, North Carolina. And 4 weeks ago, the AFGE members nationwide, in the most democratic union in this country, with 5 people on the ballot for national president, elected me on the first ballot for national president. I don't say that for your accolades to me. I'm telling y'all, in 2012, with the work of this North Carolina AFL-CIO and every union in this room, brothers and sisters, 2012, North Carolina will go for Barack Obama and Joe Biden. North Carolina will elect Walter Dalton governor of this state. North Carolina will return the state legislature to working men and women of this country. Don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. Spend your entire life fighting night and day and organize, and give everything you got to this movement, because this movement gave us everything we we will ever have in our lives, brothers and sisters. I love y'all. With all my heart.
That's what the doctor ordered. Just what the doctor ordered. Just what the doctor ordered. Brother Cox, let me, on behalf of this convention, on behalf of our board and all of our members, thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you so much for that powerful, powerful message. And as I said, just what the doctor ordered. We can do this. We're not going to give up.